great to see every single one of you on. You know, this is the fourth of our Fireside Chat series, and it's been an unbelievable success. We've had people and dynamic individuals from so many different backgrounds joining to help us stay connected, stay plugged in, and stay, you know, above water during these, what do they say, unprecedented times. There's a little cute thing going around saying, please, when can we have precedented times? We just want precedented times already. Now, today is actually the 22nd evening. It's beginning the day of the month of Menachem Av, which is the Hebrew calendar. And Menachem means to comfort. And the first part of this month, we actually commemorate some of the most devastating events on our Jewish calendar. And it's interesting, but once those events happen, we kind of switch modes into a season of healing. And the healing then leads us into the high holidays. And so I could not even imagine a more apropos time for us to be hosting this special seminar, this special chat, where hopefully, you know, our soul comes into this world and we're like these gentle, perfect, innocent beings. And then somewhere along the way, there are some bumps, some intentional, some not so intentional. And so hopefully this evening we'll be able to take a little look past and look back at some of maybe small little moments of destruction, of challenge that we went through, and be able to turn those moments of destruction into construction. Because from what I understand from both Kim and Jill, is looking inward is the first way to look outward. And once we have a sense of where we're holding and how we can heal ourselves, then we can move on to the next part of connecting and having social and emotional, deep and meaningful connections, which are so super important. So without further ado, Kim is going to give the formal intro to Jill, but I just want to give a shout out from my hometown. Jill has personally helped me and mentored me through many of the traumas that I've been through in my life. If anyone wants to hear more, stay tuned afterwards. But I'm sure we all have our books and our stories. And she's really guided me personally through some very challenging relationships with real solid tips on how to be able to find boundaries and connect to people that I want to. And then I have my soul sister, Kim, who we've seen each other a couple times here and there, but we recently reunited. And it's an honor to welcome our local Winnipegger who will be hosting the evening. And she will be taking questions and answers. And so without further ado, it's a great honor to welcome Kim and welcome Jill and welcome each and every one of you to our fourth Fireside Chat. What was the topic? There's a fancy name. We worked very hard on that name. Uh-oh. Anyone know?
Emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. I had to like Google exactly what that meant. But let's use this evening to connect as one and to try to uplift each other. All right, Kim, take it away.
I just realized I didn't have my name up properly. So I just changed that. And now I'm able to welcome everyone here. And thank you so much for being here at this Chabad Fireside Chat series. Adina and Shmuley, thank you for inviting me. As you can see now that my name is up, my name is Kimberly Nozick, and I have my master's in psychology. I facilitate various kinds of groups in the area of mental health and addiction. And I'm also coming to you live from Winnipeg, Manitoba in my living room. And it's so nice to see so many of you that are not from here. What a wonderful opportunity. I hope you guys have some coffee or a cocoa or something for this fireside chat. Make yourselves comfortable. As Adina just mentioned, we are here to talk about emotional intelligence and meaningful relationships. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest for this evening, Jill Kapenstein. She is an associate professional clinical counselor. She works at an inpatient residential treatment center with addiction. She's a regular keynote speaker and a mother of 5 children with a private practice in LA where she does sensory experiencing. She's currently completing her 3-year trauma training in somatic experiencing. So before we kick off her presentation, I'll just talk to you a little bit about how this evening will go. Jill's going to give her presentation for about 35 minutes, and when she's finished, there'll be an opportunity for questions. So please have your questions ready. You can also be typing them into the chat as the presentation goes along. So if something comes up and you just want to send it right away, feel free to do that. the way questions work on Zoom, there's a chat box at the bottom of your screen if you're on a desktop. So if you click on that, it will open up a chat box for you to ask your questions in there. And if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, there's probably a button that says more, and you can find the chat function there. Please feel free to add whatever you want into the chat box. I will be keeping track of time and Jill's presentation. And as I mentioned, we'll share her screen and we'll wrap this up at about 9 o'clock. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to the beautiful Jill. And I'm just going to get your slides up, Jill.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Hopefully the slides will come up or I won't know what to say. I wanted to thank Rabbi Shmuley and Adina, first of all, for inviting me to be a part of this series. It has been such an honor since the first time I met Adina. I think it's been a few years. I don't know if that's accurate. Something like that. I kind of lose track of time, but it's been such an honor. From the first time I met her, she was probably one of the most authentic, sensitive, kind, just real people. It was such a pleasure to work with her and her family. And I think I've grown and learned more from working with them than they have from me, but I thank you. And I trusted her, and I lost everyone else when I got the thing. Is there a way that I can see like the rest of the people, or I have to like scroll up and down? That's a bummer. Okay.
Well, there's the ratio we talked about. Can you click that again?
So if I go to 100, I think that,
can you go to 25 or 50?
So I was at 50. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so I trusted Adina, of course, because I trust Adina. That's how our work goes. And she told me about Kim, and I don't know, in my wildest dreams, I could have never imagined, immediately having such a bond with her. She's so like open and supportive and kind and brilliant. And this would have never happened. This evening would have never happened without her. She really put it all together and encouraged me. Yeah, amazing. What an amazing human being. So thank you, Kim. Hopefully we'll get through this. I wanted to say that normally when I've spoken to groups, and when Adina and Shmuley first asked me if I would ever come to Winnipeg and present for them, I was like, sure. I never imagined in a million years like what that would look like. I thought I was actually going to get on an airplane and land in another country and come to Winnipeg. But instead I'm sitting in my daughter's bedroom and Los Angeles. But it's such a great honor to be a part and to have the opportunity to connect with all of you. So let's get started. We're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and how to achieve meaningful relationships. And I just want you to know that I need to hear this talk more than you guys. I think that, whenever I talk, I just want to humble myself and say that typically I talk about parenting, and it's a little easier for me with 25 years of experience and on hands, but we wanted to broaden this talk to like all people so that it could relate to everyone. So, if anything's confusing, if anything doesn't make sense, please chat or email me afterwards. We'll provide my email so that because I never want anyone to leave a talk that I've given and have any kind of confusion or being upset in any way. So please, okay, so we're talking about emotional intelligence. I can only see Miss Tversky. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on you, besides Adina and Kim. So usually when I talk, I also read the audience and try to get a feel for who I'm speaking to. Typically a speaker wants to know who's the audience, so I can tailor make my speech to the audience. I had no idea who the audience was going to be, so no pressure. Okay, so the definition of emotional intelligence. Has anyone heard of emotional intelligence? We've all heard of IQ, I suppose. I'm not really sure we all understand really what IQ means and how it's measured, but we're going to be talking about EQ tonight, which is emotional intelligence. And this is the ability to identify your own feelings and those of the people around you, their feelings, and be able to effectively communicate your needs or the needs of someone else. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, so Kim, next slide. Now, can everyone else see this slide too? Kimmy?
I think that's a yes.
Yes, we all could. We're just
Yes.
Okay.
I can, Jill, if you tell me what to look out for, I can scan people's faces. Do you want me to, like, if someone's like looking sad, like put
Right,
them
if
on
you could
mute,
just look really like shocked for me,
you know, if someone's like laughing at you.
Okay, so the relationship between emotional intelligence, EQ, and resilience. Okay, so this is, we're going to be talking about emotional resilience, meaningful relationship, positive connections, and how they all work together. And I'm probably going to repeat myself over and over and over so that it like really sinks in. Okay, and again, that's for me. Okay, so next. Okay, so why is resilience important and what is it? Someone's resilience is their ability to bounce back. So after we experience a struggle, we need to be able to get back on the bicycle. You know, we know children, they fall off the bike. We have to be able to get back on the bike and be able to enjoy life again, right? The reason why we have this arrow on the slant is because our resilience can lessen and increase at any given time in our life. It's not like we can increase our muscles and like get really, really resilient and be really great and not later on like feel less resilient. It's something that we basically have to be aware of and be working on all the time. Okay, so next slide. Whether we are growth-minded or fixed-minded makes a really big difference when it comes to our level of resilience. And the triangle that you're seeing in front of you is a representation how you can figure out and become aware of your own mindset, where you're holding at any given time. So nowadays, with Zooming and Corona and everything, a lot of people are really focused on that bottom corner of the future, like what's going to be. We're living in strange times, you know, it's a little bit uncertain. So if you're spending a lot of your time thinking about the future, you're most likely going to be more anxious. If you tend to spend more time thinking about the past, the bottom left part of the triangle, then you might tend to be sad or settle kind of in the depression zone, okay? But where we want to spend most of our time is up at the top in the present. So I know with mindfulness is like a big buzz these days, you know, if we can stay mindful and meditate and really stay in the present, and that's when we're going to be the most happy, the most growth oriented, and not fixed minded. Okay, so next slide. So the thing that I think most people need to understand is that as humans, we were created by our creator with an inner capacity to heal. Just like if you were to get a cut on your finger, and let's just stick with like a minor cut, the little cells in your body know how to run over there and they know how to like fix that up from the inside. And it's like a miraculous thing that happens that our body physically knows how to heal. And what I'd like to propose is that our body also knows how to emotionally heal. We have the same capacity inside for all of that inner workings to help us heal from the inside. So somatic experiencing, if you haven't or you have heard of it, is what I use. I'm in a 3-year trauma training. I'm just going into the advanced phases, so I'm not finished with my training, and I hope to never be finished with my training because it's just an ongoing, beautiful way to facilitate healing. So this is what I do. I don't even consider myself, I don't know, a mentor of this, whatever I am. Like, I really consider myself a facilitator of just helping someone find their own healing from within themselves. And that looks differently for each person. Okay, so next slide. So understanding somatic experiencing. SOMA means body. The Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute was founded by Dr. Peter Levine. He's kind of our guru. I've been trained basically to help facilitate someone's mind and their body. So it's that integration. But I want to just kind of clarify psychosomatic versus somatic experiencing. Psychosomatic, in my opinion, has a little bit of a negative connotation. I don't know if a lot of the people that I could see before were my age and above. And there was a movie called Psycho. It wasn't a very pleasant movie. How's everybody doing, Adina? Is everyone still awake?
I was just talking to myself. Everybody is awake. We have one almost asleep. A few smiles, a few deleted, a lot of shaking head. We just had a question that maybe might just help go onward, or do we want to save those till the end? Someone just didn't understand what's growth-minded versus fixed-minded.
Right. So good question. Someone who's growth-minded is open to learning new things. Someone who's fixed-minded is not open to growing and understanding new concepts. Good question. Okay, thanks. Okay, so psychosomatic, it used to be when you went to the doctor if something was wrong with you and they insinuated, especially with women, that your physical ailment was a product of something in your head. So it wasn't very nice. It was like, oh, this isn't something physical, it's something mental and something's wrong with you. So what Peter Levine did is he created somatic experiencing. You want to go to the next slide, Kimmy? And what he did was he has his doctorate in, I'm going to a different slide, in physiology and psychology, and he merged the two fields and created this somatic experiencing. So basically, all people are made up again of brain and body. So our brain contains our thoughts, right? That's how we think. And our body contains our feelings. This is where we feel, right? Nobody ever says like, who are you? And you go, oh, I'm over here. Everybody says like, here I am. This is me, right? This is our body. This is what contains our soul, right? So what we're doing in somatic experiencing is we're learning how to integrate, kind of happens like right here, is integrating our thoughts and our feelings. And basically what we do as human beings is we pendulate back and forth. You know, it's kind of like a figure eight. We pendulate back and forth. I'm having this thought. Where do I feel it in my body? And when I have a sensation in my body, I'm able to go back up to my brain and keep balancing out the two. So it's a little bit of a strange concept to like incorporate, but just bear with me. So I like to use the example of when a baby's born, okay? There's something so special about a baby. They come out, and I think what's so special about them is they don't have thoughts. You know, they're completely just one big sensory ball. They just feel. And babies know, they like have a vibe. They know when the people around them, you want to go to the next slide? Babies know if their caregiver, their container is solid or not. And we often blame babies' nervous systems as becoming colicky, and I'm not blaming the mother, although we're always blamed for everything, and that's fine. But whoever's really spending the most time with the baby, that baby's gonna get a certain vibe. And we have to read their vibe, and they have to read our vibe. They have to know if we're really available to them. And they're only feeling. What are they feeling? They're knowing when their stomach's growling and they're hungry. They know if they're cold or they're hot, their temperature, their compression, if they're bundled too tight, if they don't feel tight enough. So you get the gist. They can feel when they're wet or messy or dirty, and they let us know. So let's go to the next slide. This vibe is often pushed by the people around us. We want those babies quickly because, you know, emotions are messy. You know, thoughts can be clean and neat. We can organize them. I mean, not me, but like with Kimmy's help, I was able to organize my thoughts. But typically emotional issues or this type of vibe, this sensory thing that I'm talking about, it can be misunderstood. And it can be misunderstood within each one of us. I'll give you an example. Like if someone's on the verge of a panic attack and their body starts betraying them and their heart starts racing and they feel like overwhelmed by their body, they just want to push it away. And what I'm saying is let's know that process that God created our body in a certain way so that we would have these sensations in our body and we would pay attention to them. So 30 years ago, I could work with kids up until the age of 15 or 17, and I could say, you know, you're feeling sad or you're feeling anxious. Where do you feel that in your body? And they knew right away. Right away, they would say, oh, you know, I feel it in my stomach. I have butterflies. Like butterflies are flying everywhere. Now I work with kids that are 3, 5, 7, young ages. And I say, you know, where are you feeling that in your body? And they're like, I don't know. Kids today, because of technology, they don't even realize that they have a body anymore. It's a little bit scary. But what I'm proposing tonight is that we relearn, or we re-tap in and get used to noticing the sensations that are occurring in our body, and we start thinking about them and paying attention to them. Okay, next slide. So, okay, we're going to kind of shift and then come back to that whole concept. So I hope everyone got that. Adina, how's everybody doing? So we're gonna shift.
Do you want an answer?
Anyone?
Kim, I'm gonna let you take over and give the rundown on how everyone's doing.
Who, Kim? Okay, we're gonna move to meaning and finding purpose in our struggle. Okay, so everybody who's alive experiences pain and struggle. Okay, there was a man who unfortunately died in 1992. His name was Dr. VIKTOR FRANKL. I hope that everyone has heard of him. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna, and he lost his entire family. He was given papers due to his work to leave the country in order to avoid being put into the concentration camps, but he couldn't leave his parents. And he and his wife, who was pregnant with their first child, and his parents were put into the concentration camps, and everyone was murdered except for him. The only thing that he came in with besides his family was a manuscript that meant everything to him. He had created a beautiful manuscript, and he was a brilliant person. And of course, the Nazis burned up his manuscript as well. And over the 4 years that he was in 4 different concentration camps, he was able to keep studying people and watching and learning and befriending. I just recently read his book, Man's Search for Meaning. It was hard to read, but so educational. I definitely highly recommend it. Kimmy, can you go to the next screen, please? So basically what the book says is that when we can find meaning in our suffering, then we can stop the suffering. You know, it's not our choice to have struggles and to have pain in our life, but it's our choice how long we suffer for. And I'll give you an example that he uses in his book. You know, after he was freed from the Holocaust and barely survived, he went back to teaching and being a doctor, and he remarried, and he saw patients in his private practice, and a man came to him. He had been married for 60 years, and his wife had passed away, and the pain was beyond. He really didn't know what he was going to do with himself, and for 3 years he tried to search for ways to cope with his suffering. And he went into Dr. VIKTOR FRANKL's office, and he said, "Doctor, I'm not really sure what you're going to be able to do for me that was different than what I've been trying to do to alleviate my suffering for the last 3 years, but I'll give it a try." So Dr. FRANKL listened to him, and he finally said to him, he was like, "Can you just tell me what would have happened if you would have died first?" And the man immediately was able to assign a purpose to his suffering. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, my wife would not have been able to handle it." And he said, "So you realize what you did? You saved your wife from the suffering by surviving her." And the man said, "You know what? It still hurts, but I'm not suffering anymore." So that's what I'm talking about by assigning meaning to our suffering. So again, we're always going to have struggles, we're going to have pain, but we don't have to suffer once we assign meaning to it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the importance of connection. Connection brings it all together. I mean, that's what connection is. If we connect our resilience and we connect it to our struggles and putting meaning and purpose, then we can become growth-oriented, we can become connected to ourselves and connected to other people in a really, really meaningful way. Okay, so next slide. So let's organize what we've learned so far. We have this innate built-in capacity to heal. We know that our creator, I call him God. Everyone says higher power, and that means something to everyone in a different way. But I believe that our creator made us with the healing mechanism that we need before he gives us the struggle. So we're on this earth to grow into the better me, the better you, the better whoever we are. Like, I don't go on Instagram very often, but I've heard from my patients that when they do, it makes them feel awful because they're comparing themselves constantly to other people who are making themselves look fantastic, and they make it look like they're having such a good time. But really, we're supposed to compare ourselves to ourselves. We're supposed to be becoming the best us that we can become. So we know that God gave us this healing capacity, or at least I'm telling you, and hopefully you trust me. So when he gives us a struggle, we already have all the tools we need in order to get through the struggle and grow and become a better person, a better version of ourselves. So I want to just talk about, something personal that happened to me last week, and Kimmy really saved me. I had one of the biggest struggles of my life. I'm not going to go into detail. I was able, because of Kimmy and her container and her being like, okay, whatever you need, I'm here for you, and sending so much love, and whatever it is you need, I'm here. I've really never met anyone like Kimmy. Like, she really is she has a deep container, a deep soul. She's so sensitive and giving, and it's really, really beautiful. I can tell you from working with a lot of different people that Kimmy's a really special person. So I thank you for that. But it was really a struggle. And in the middle of the struggle for me last week, I just kept thinking, there has to be a meaning. There has to be purpose. There has to be a reason I'm going through this. And I know that God's making me stronger. It was bad. But with that knowledge, and I think we all have to ask ourselves in the moment of our struggles, am I going to let God keep helping me grow into that person that I'm supposed to become? Okay, so next slide. Okay, so again, this process is integrating our mind and our body and seeing our body as this container. So what I want to do now is have just a minute to walk you through. I know the screen says Google 5-minute body scan, but we're just going to do a 1-minute body scan in the interest of time. So I want everybody to put their feet on the ground if you can. I want you to notice your body, and just kind of like, if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You don't have to if you think everyone's staring at you. But I want you to take a minute and just notice your body kind of on the inside. Notice if your stomach's growling because you're hungry. I don't know if during the pandemic anyone's ever been hungry. I feel like we're all just eating and eating and eating. But yeah, okay, so notice your body from the inside. And see if you can just for a few seconds, take a deep breath and notice if you feel any sensations inside your body, not on the outside, but just on the inside. Feel whatever chair is holding you. Feel your body leaning against something, or your tush sitting on something, your feet planted on the ground. And just notice if you can feel any sensations on the inside of your body. Recognize that your body is a container. It contains your soul. And take a minute to just notice, without any judgment, just a neutral awareness that you have a beautiful soul, a beautiful piece of your Creator inside your container. Okay, so Kimmy, if you could go to the next slide. I hope everyone is able to notice something inside their body. I want to just talk about the time that we're living in. I know we'd all kind of like to forget about the pandemic, and hopefully it's leaving soon, but I don't want it to leave without us changing and without us growing. Throughout history, we've experienced wars and famines and physical starvation and horrific traumas that I'm not minimizing. But our rabbis are describing what we're going through right now as an emotional starvation. The fact that we're all so disconnected, and that's why we chose to talk about bringing all of us together and through connection. But what we're experiencing is disconnection. We're experiencing like an isolation and aloneness that we've never felt before. And it's on a very large scale. Now, it's beautiful that Adina and Shmuley brought us together through Zoom, but it's not the same. you know? So we have to do everything we can to feel connected, like metaphysically, like on a universal level. We have to try to really feel each other on a different level, because we're capable of doing that. As far as I'm concerned, you know, having 5 children, thank God, is like such a beautiful thing. I can't imagine anything more than I would ever want from my children than for them to get along. I don't ever want gifts from them. The biggest gift that I can receive from my children is knowing that they get along. And whenever one of them is going through something, I call all of them and I say, like, put your heart together, send all your love to this person because she needs it. And that's what we need to do as a collective people, as Jews, as human beings. I believe that we all human beings of every color, of every religion, have a piece of God in them, and we're all connected on a human level. Go ahead to the next slide. So I want you to know that I have an iPhone. The whole world can see I have an iPhone. It's a superpower. I think technology is amazing. I don't want anyone to walk around and think that I'm bashing technology. I think it's great. But I think everyone just needs to gain awareness that what these things do when we're like doing this all day long, it serves to be like a separation between our head, our thoughts, and our body. So the more time, research has shown, the more time we spend looking at this, the more disconnected we'll be from our feelings. And that's why research has time and time again shown that the more time someone spends on their computers or their phones, the more likely they are to feel isolated, alone, and depressed. Okay, next slide. So these silent disconnectors, again, as long as we're aware of it, as long as we realize that we have to just keep track of it, we're good. Okay, next slide. Okay, so creating meaningful connections, that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that now that we have all the toilet paper we could ever want, and we've been able to stock our refrigerators, thank God, that we're able to kind of fix this emotional starvation and disconnection and repair this loneliness. And how do we do that? How do we create meaningful connections? Okay. So we have to use emotional intelligence in order to learn how to create these connections. So we have to identify our feelings, and we have to find people that are worthy, they're containers of worthy of us sharing our feelings with. I knew when right away I shared what I was going through on a very basic level with Kimmy, she got me like right away. I don't know what I did to her container, but it was solid. And I knew that I was being held and that I was going to be okay. And that's what we need. We need to feel that vibe when we're with someone else. And when I do the parenting classes and with singles, with marrieds, with whoever it is, like people have to really figure out if the person they're dealing with has a solid container. And people know that, they feel it. So we need to take the time while we are still in lockdown and, you know, examine how our container feels to ourselves. You know, examine our own containers and the containers of the people around us. And with EQ, we can communicate that. We can say to someone that we're stuck with in quarantine, or maybe we inherited siblings or parents or friends that, you know, haven't always been a solid container, and we weren't always solid for them, but we can use our emotional intelligence and say, listen, I'm feeling this way, and this is what I need from you. I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling sad, and when you do this, it makes me feel better. When you do that, it makes me feel worse. But the hardest part of emotional intelligence is really, for me anyway, everyone it's different, but for me, it's really identifying how I'm feeling altogether. Like, I'm feeling great now. I don't know what the questions are going to be like when they come in. I might be a little overwhelmed. I hope you guys are sending in questions. But right now, I feel great. I love looking at Kimmy and Freda and Adina. Like, I'm really happy. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we identify our feelings? Okay, this is going to sound really strange. But the way that we identify our feelings is that we go into our body. We do that live body scan. We go inside. So when we're experiencing a Trevor, hi Trevor. When we experience a struggle, then we go into our body and we feel where that struggle is, and we allow our body to communicate through our sensations. Okay? I hope I get a lot of questions on that so I can elaborate on that later. So go ahead, next slide. So many people have told me when I say to them, when they're in my office, you know, where are you feeling this in your body? They'll say to me, I don't feel anything. And I don't know if it's because they're trying to stump me or they really just are so disconnected that they don't feel anything. So what I usually say is, okay, notice that. Notice that you don't feel any of your body sensations, because honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on inside of your body. And if you're missing it, I would suggest that you know, maybe go on Google and do a 5-minute guided imagery, or you get in touch with a professional through the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute. You want to go to the next slide, Kimmy? And you seek out a practitioner so that you could, while we're still Zooming and it's easy, you could find like someone who really resonates with you and pick anyone from around the world that speaks your language and have a couple of sessions to reconnect you to your body. I know this sounds probably complicated and new to a lot of people. So I want you to know that it's a really simple process when you allow it to just happen. It definitely is better to have someone facilitate it with you. So, you know, I definitely recommend finding a practitioner. Go ahead. So Dr. Peter Levine was the person who founded, like I told you before, the Somatic Experiencing Training Trauma Institute, and he merged his expertise in both fields of physiology and psychology. Gina Ross is a woman who lives in my community. She was born in Syria, one of 8 children, and she's a twin. She is a remarkable human being. I've had the honor of having been in her training, and again, coming up in September to be in her advanced training. Unfortunately, we're going to be doing it over Zoom, but she is an absolute joy to be with and to learn from. She's really changed my life. If you could get a session with her, you know, that would be amazing also. She made for the pandemic a free 10-minute video that if anybody wants it, we'll be providing. It's really incredible. It's a great guide to do somatic experiencing with yourself. So you'll let Kimmy know if you'd like to have that. Okay, next. So I wanted to provide a practical example. I don't want to put anyone into a panic attack, but Kimmy thought that this was a good idea to do. Let's imagine that we're all going into an elevator and there's 44 flights in the building we're in. And we push the button and the doors close and the elevator starts going up, 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 up. And all of a sudden it just stops. And we're kind of stuck there. The doors don't open, we're pushing the buttons, and what's happening to our body? I mean, if it were me, I know I would start getting really anxious. My heart would probably start racing. I might start sweating. I might start, you know, panicking a little bit. But what I need to do is go ahead and go to the next slide. What I need to understand, what Dr. Peter Levine says, is what we resist persists. So that means if we resist going into our body when we're having those sensations, they'll get louder and they'll get scarier. So I love when people have panic attacks in my office, because I'm able to right away, like within 60 seconds, get them out of it and show them how easy it is. Because if you're trying to get away and you're trying to escape from the sensations in your body, again, they're going to grow louder and they're going to go scarier. If you notice them and you pay attention to them and you believe and you trust your body, the sensations will go away. You'll be able to go back up into your brain and say, oh, what do I need to do? I probably need to push the phone and call someone and get me out of this elevator. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, what we're going for here is integration. We want to become whole. We want our body and our brain through this channel right here connecting. And I noticed, Kimmy, your hand here, like Kimmy has this magical way of staying in contact here, because that's our guide. That's how we go from our brain to our feelings. I'm feeling this, I'm noticing the sensations, and what's the thought that comes up, and how do I pendulate back and forth and then integrate? So that's what we're looking. We're looking to become this whole person that's completely integrated. Next. Okay, so how does connecting with ourselves help us connect to others? Okay, again, when we're able to do this integration with ourselves, when we're able to stay in the moment and identify our feelings and help ourselves regulate, then we're able to then share what we need with the people around us, or notice what they need, so that we can create this relationship that feels safe and feels good. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that I came up with, I took it off of drop, what was it? Drop, roll, and something. When there's a fire, you're supposed to drop, oh, and something, I don't know. Anyway, so I created
Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. Okay, so yeah, so I say stop, label, and listen. Thank you, Kimmy. Stop, label, and listen. So we always want to separate the person from the problem, the person from the struggle. You aren't the struggle. You aren't anxiety. You may experience anxiety, but you don't become anxiety. So whenever we're working with someone, whenever I'm working with someone, I say, like, so what is that struggle? That is something outside of you. And what is it that it's trying to teach you? What are we supposed to learn from that? So we want to be able to look at the person and say, you know, it looks like you're feeling this. And if you're right, then they'll be like, yeah. And then you want to just listen. If you're wrong, the other night I was talking to my son and he was really getting frustrated. And in the interest of time, we're always like, okay, so you're frustrated. And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, it looks like you're really mad. He's like, Mom, you're 0 for 2. Could you just be quiet? And I was like, right, okay. Yeah, so why don't you just tell me? Why don't you just label what's going on? So you can try to label the person the younger they are if they're having trouble identifying. But it often is better to let them label what they're feeling, since they probably have a better understanding, and then help them explain to you what they need. Okay, I have on here the example of the oxygen mask on the airplane. Everybody uses this example, but when you're on an airplane, if the oxygen mask falls down, of course, I would just pass out immediately. But if the oxygen mask came down, we always put it on ourselves. We're instructed to help ourselves calm down before we're able to help the people around us. That's the same with our emotional regulation. We have to be emotionally regulated first before we're able to help the people around us. Okay, so next. Remember, we're all connected. Again, our Creator gave us a piece of Him in each one of us. Our mission in life was tailored, designed for us with all of the tools that we need to get through these struggles. Next slide. This is something that I created with Kimmy's help, just to kind of like see the circle of life. You know, we want connection. We need connection. The more connection we have, the more resilient we're going to be. So when the struggles come, we're able to find the meaning, we're able to grow, and we're able to reconnect. And the connection just goes stronger and stronger as we just keep doing this loop. Okay, I want to be able to take questions. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? I'm so happy to see everyone again.
Yes, I decided to stop this screen share. Jill, that was so very interesting. Wow, and we have lots of great questions. So I'm going to just get right into it because time has flown by.
I see a lot of people still awake.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think we should look so much at the time.
Okay.
We never wrote an ending time, so we can, if Jill and Kim, if you're okay, you know, maybe we can just formally thank everybody for coming on. I think this is the most exciting part, the question and answers. But if anybody needs to go, make it a great week. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you can take a little something from this and take it inside and pass it on. But we're going to keep going until Jill and Kim, you're comfortable with that.
Okay.
That works for me. But yes, thank you everyone for coming. If you do have to hop off, just hop off, and much love and gratitude, and hope you took something valuable away from this. I know I will. Okay, the first question.
Are
Actually,
these anonymous questions, or are we saying who the question's from?
I think if they put it up in the chat publicly with their name attached, I'm going to assume that they don't mind their name being announced. But if they sent it maybe privately, I'll just not mention the name.
Okay.
That intuitively makes sense to me. If someone doesn't want their name mentioned, just send me a message. But the first question, or I could just not say anybody's names. I've lost myself now. Okay, so the first question is, when you were talking about meaning and making meaning from the struggle, what if someone's just making up a meaning and it's wrong or it's fake? Is that going to be helpful? What if they're just trying to find a way out of what they're experiencing?
Well, I mean, I think the more genuine someone can be, the more helpful it's going to be. I mean, does that make sense? I guess I might not understand the question. Do you understand the question, Kimmy?
The question, word for word, is what if the meaning is just a way to get away? What if the meaning is wrong or fake? So I think sometimes people can kid themselves and make excuses. Well, this happened because of this, or this something because of that. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that's not going to serve oneself well. It might temporarily give some relief, but not a lot of growth.
Right. Well, I also think that it's a really good idea to seek advice from your local rabbinic authorities. You know, if you have a rabbi in your life or a mentor, you know, sometimes it's better to bounce off. You know, sometimes if we get too lost in our head, it's hard to see the meaning. But, you know, seeking advice in that area, I highly recommend that.
If someone, I guess the question was posted publicly, Vlad, does that answer your question? Can you unmute?
Yeah, I mean, so I come across examples when people don't want to listen to anyone. They don't want rabbi or anyone in their life. They fake some meaning to get away from the reality, just as you explained, to minimize the suffering, minimize the struggle. Is this the good way? Is this helpful?
Well, I think that it's the type of thing that's so subjective, you know, and, you know, an outsider looking into someone else's life might say, oh, you're copping out, you know, if you want to assign meaning that way, it might not make sense to you, but if that's someone's coping mechanism, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay.
Thanks, Vlad. All right, next question is from Mr. Michael Nozick. When you were talking about, I think it was you were talking about the body as a container, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dad. The question was, I assume we're talking about emotional as distinct from physical outside sourced pain.
I heard container. I'm not exactly sure I understand the question. Say it again.
Dad, can you unmute and ask what you were trying to ask? Because I'm failing to understand. Here's where the communication breakdown between parent and child comes in. You're muted, Dad.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. I'm certain because the little arrow that goes across it is gone. You were talking about pain generally. If you are suffering pain because you have an injury, you've had some surgery, you've hurt yourself, are you suggesting that your techniques for focus, for meditating on them, for feeling?
Right. Thank you for your clarification. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point. Anyone who comes to see me, if they're experiencing physical pain, I always, you know, recommend and encourage that Rabbi Shmuley, that they go to the doctor, to their local doctor and have that checked out for sure, 100%. I don't try to cure physical pain, but typically when we have physical pain, it can be exacerbated by our emotional well-being also. You know, I've talked to so many people that got COVID. I even heard someone say that their son-in-law, I had guests Friday night, and he himself, the father of the family, had corona. And he was saying how most of the people in their house got corona, but he had one son-in-law that had it for 3 hours. And he literally was shivering and had a fever. And he said, I can't do this. I don't want this. I'm not going to have corona. And within 3 hours, it was gone. So I definitely think that our emotional and our physical health merge and they affect each other. But yes, if you have physical pain, like I can tell you there are times when I get like a sharp pain and I'm like, oh boy, I think I need to relax, because our entire body is, all of our bones are wrapped in muscles. So, you know, if we sit and we're honest with each other, you know, with ourselves, and we do that body scan, we're going to feel tension in places in our body. And if we notice them and we don't judge the tension, and we allow our body from the inside to kind of like, you know, I learned this from Kimmy, get like internal massage through our breathing, then this relaxation happens that kind of helps that tension go down. But for sure, if you're in pain, go to the hospital. Yes, don't call me for physical pain.
Forgive me, I wasn't quite clear.
No, I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That would have been a disaster. Yes. Okay.
If I'm reading him right, he still wants to clarify.
Yeah. You know you have something wrong with you. You've had surgery, for example.
Right. Right.
Are you suggesting that the somatic self-treatment can ease that pain? Is it the opposite of psychosomatic pain? In other words, you can uncause pain. Are you suggesting that?
I'm suggesting that your healing can be facilitated. You can heal faster if you allow your body, and you know that your body was built for healing.
Absolutely. The somatic experiencing will reduce stress, and stress always exacerbates physical pain. So it's not going to hurt to breathe and get in contact with your body, slow down, and induce a parasympathetic nervous system response or a relaxation response, because the physical pain will decrease when the stress decreases. So I might need more.
I'm going to just say it on a simpler level. You know, I'm sure everyone's heard of the fight-flight response, where your autonomic nervous system, you know, you're in the woods and the bear is chasing you. And we were created to have our body release cortisol and adrenaline throughout our body. These are real chemicals that are being pulsed through your system in order to get you ready to go on a run or to start fighting, right? So what happens in trauma is the freeze. Trauma lives in the freeze. So if a bear came running up to them and then decided they weren't hungry anymore, you didn't fight the bear and you didn't run away from the bear. So you weren't able to release those chemicals that are pulsing through your body, okay? That cortisol, adrenaline, and many other hormones that are now pulsing through your body. And those hormones, when you don't run them off or fight them off, they actually get stuck in your body. So a very simple example of what people do is as far as I know, there's 4 types of tears. So if you're crying happy tears and you were to save those tears and put them under a microscope, they look very different than tears of sadness or tears of frustration, tears of anger. So it's a real thing. You can Google it. What your body produces when you see those tears and that release of the cortisol and adrenaline or whatever it is that needs to come out of your body looks very different. It's a very different process that happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We have lots of questions. Okay, we'll try to move through these. We have a question from Trevor. How do I establish a better connection with myself, mind and body, in order to establish better connections with others? Is it necessary to be well connected with the self to connect well with others?
Yes, great question. Absolutely. It's essential. We have to really get connected and understand ourselves and our needs in order to connect with others. For sure. That was the mushel, the story of the oxygen mask. Take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. Good question.
Yeah, and on a similar note, Uliana asks, when you're discussing if somebody has a solid container, how can somebody use their own somatic experiencing to understand that the person they're talking to, well, whether they could tell whether the person they're talking to has a solid container or not?
Right. So containers are fluid also, you know, in the Japanese culture, I forget what it's called, but they have a thing, you know, in our culture, when a bowl breaks, we typically throw it away and buy a new one. But in the Japanese culture, they have this incredible thing where they like take the bowl and they glue it back together. And the more cracks, the more they keep filling it with gold, and the more beautiful the bowl becomes. So we have to like see our container like that also. You know, when we have struggles, we have to know that when we've triumphed over these struggles, our container gets more solid and stronger. So, you know, people definitely react differently with other people. You kind of have to figure out that vibe. I don't know who asked the question, so it's hard for me to address.
That was me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so what I'm wondering, Jill, is, you know, how can we use the somatic experience to know that the person that we're talking about is a solid container for us or not? Would your body give you cues and what to look for?
Absolutely. I think you will have a vibe 100%. You'll know when you're with the person if the person is someone that you resonate with, that you feel safe with, that you feel comfortable. 100%. I think your body will tell you that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was also taught to listen to your body because there might not be a truth. If you don't feel safe, you know, honor your body. You don't feel safe. Doesn't really matter if theoretically they are. Like, why would you put yourself in a situation that felt dangerous and try to convince yourself of finding the reality? But what do you think about that, Jill? I guess that's my question for you.
Yeah, I definitely think we have to, you know, like Trevor said, really connect with ourselves and know that we have this ability, we have this sixth sense, this vibe, and we have to reconnect with it. You know, babies are born with it. We are all born with this ability to feel. It's whether or not we're going to connect with it and we're going to allow it to penetrate.
Okay. Got a few more. Here's a question. Is it difficult to establish a therapeutic relationship with an atheist?
You know, it's a good question. Am I allowed to know who asked that?
I'm looking to see. Yes,
Oh,
you
Terry?
are. Terry, Tova. Hi, Tova. You can unmute.
I'll tell you, I had one of the most difficult clients over the last month in the inpatient treatment center that I work in. He refused to believe in a higher power of any kind. And I always wondered myself, you know, I wasn't raised religious, but I became religious after I had my first child. It's going to sound strange and make me look like an idiot, but I really thought when I was pregnant that I was having like a puppy. Like, I don't know. I couldn't imagine that like a human being could grow in my stomach. Like, how could that happen? You know? And when I gave birth to her and she came out and she was just so precious and so perfect, she wouldn't cry. She just purred, you know? And I knew then that for sure there was a God, you know? But that was my vibe. That was what felt right for me. Other people have had different experiences, but I always wondered in my mind, what would it look like if someone didn't have a relationship with a higher power? And when I met this person over the last month, he finally left last week. I saw someone who was anxious all the time and really had a difficult time, you know, going through life. And, you know, that was just what I saw. So, you know, would I work with someone who doesn't? Of course I would, but, you know, it's difficult.
Well, how can an atheist even begin a 12-step program? Because isn't the first step believing in a higher power?
Yeah, I mean, I kept asking the same thing, it could be a flower. I don't care what your higher power is, just pick one, and he refused to do any of the 12 steps. And then there wasn't, I did somatic experience with him. I asked him to, recognize his body, and he wasn't willing to do it. So, he wasn't at that time where he was ready to do the work. You can't force someone to do it. You have to be ready and willing.
Yeah, and Terry, if you know someone who's an atheist that needs some help, there are groups such as Beyond Belief that are.
No, I don't. You talk a lot about your soul and things like that, and I was wondering, as a practitioner, is it difficult to deal with people who don't have any beliefs?
Right. So, I always have a 15-minute free consultation with people before we decide whether or not we're going to, work together. And I've been trained by some incredible people that have told me that I'll know, whether someone, I can help the person or not. And I really trust God that he sends me the people that I'm able to help. And I know after one session, if I'm not going to be able to help someone, and I make 3 referrals and I send them on their way.
Kind of reminds me of my mother all of a sudden, because if she heard of an accident or we told her and someone went to the hospital, her first question was, Jewish? And if I said no, too bad anyway.
Right.
So
whenever I hear a siren, and in LA, we hear them like every 3 seconds, I just think to myself and send some love with that person and hope that they get the care that they need.
We have 2 more questions, Jill. Thank you,
Okay.
Terry. They seem to be a little bit different direction there. Questions about whether you might be able to take us through. The first one is about how you would, a demonstration, a 60-second demonstration on how to stop a client's panic attack. So I guess, does anyone want to go into a panic right now?
To be the patient?
I can have a panic attack.
I want someone else to have the panic attack.
I'm really good at it. Are you sure? Just kidding. Any volunteers?
Well, whose idea was it?
This is a question. I don't want to name the person, but I'll let them name themselves if they would like.
It's okay. It's from me, but I don't know if I can fake a panic attack.
No, you don't have to fake a panic attack. Just right now, do you have anything that's frustrating you about the talk, or something that you want to process?
No, feeling pretty good actually. Sorry. It's been really enjoyable.
Okay, so notice your body, because this is a really important grounding resource for people. And I always try to resource people before I really go into their body, because I want them to feel their container, and I want them to feel resourced before we do the emotional surgery, So notice what it feels like to feel calm, and where you feel that in your body. What is the calmest place that you feel?
Like kind of in my solar plexus.
That's a good place to feel calm. Can you describe any sensations?
Not sure. Just kind of like smooth, I guess.
Is there a color?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that what you would do with a panic attack. So would you ask somebody what they're feeling in their body when they're having a panic attack, and kind of what the sensation, what the color is?
Sensations. Notice the sensations and describe them to me.
Okay.
But I always have them ground their feet on the floor and feel their body in their seat, and allow their body to really be held. Because a lot of times, I feel like the chair I'm sitting in right now isn't even holding me. I'm feeling tension in my shoulders. I'm okay, every time I'm able to give, I'm trying to give you the attention that you need. So, but when I give myself the ability to say oh, okay, yeah, that's hurting, then I notice it and it goes away. So I first have the person find a place of comfort. And I always know when someone's in my office and they're not comfortable. I have like a gazillion pillows and I make them get comfortable in their body before we start.
Okay. So then you just get them to verbalize what they're feeling and describe
to
it.
notice
Okay.
them, to allow their body to notice the sensations. And then when they notice the sensation, what thought comes up? And then we pendulate back and forth from the brain
Okay.
to the body, back to the brain to the body.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Great question. Okay, so we have, I don't understand this question, so I might need some help. There is a question asking from Sandra, what is the difference between somatic experience and biodecoding?
Okay.
Have you heard about biodecoding?
I have not. You want to tell me what it is?
It's kind of the same. It's based on the body and how the body affects our emotions. I thought you might know a bit about.
Never heard of it. I'm happy to look it up though.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. I heard a bit about it from someone that works with it in Argentina, but I've been looking into it. Yeah, it's like how you heal your emotions, your feelings through the body too. It's kind of connected. I don't know much about it, so I thought maybe.
Muy bien. Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything that connects the brain and the body is top notch in my book.
All right, we have 2 more questions. I'm going to take this one from Adina. Any tips on making a boundary with a toxic person?
So yeah, a lot of the work that we do, I mean, listen, I gave you like a very simple version of what somatic experiencing is. We do lots and lots of different tools. And when you watch Gina's video, if you watch it, like she also gives a lot of different grounding tools and things. A lot of the work that we do is boundaries and creating a container around yourself. I don't know if anybody watched the movie The Incredibles. Each one of the characters has a special power. And Violet, the daughter, has this special power where she she gets really shy and she goes like, psh, she makes this force field around her whole body to protect herself. And then on top of it, she goes invisible, right? Wouldn't that be nice to be able to do that? Like I would love to be able to do that. So that's what we need to do. We need to form, a solid, a lot of my patients come in and I'm like, okay, so you're actually not going to have a normal boundary. You're going to have the Iron Dome. Okay. You're going to put up the Iron Dome so that when like the bullets, the missiles come flying in your way, you're actually able to deflect any of these things that are coming your way. So that's the boundary work, but in a nutshell, but there's a lot of work that we do with boundaries.
Wonderful. I have to try that, sadly. Okay, and last question. Can you give 3 or 4 different ways to body scan? Are there 1, 2, 5, or 10-minute body scan versions?
So I just learned about the body scan from Kimmy today. So I'm going to let her answer that question. I love the idea. I always kind of was afraid of body scans myself. You never know what they're going to find. So, I like the idea of an emotional body scan much better. To really, it's a great, how do you say muscle, Rabbi, in English? Analogy?
Yeah, parable, analogy.
Right. So, it's a great analogy of what you need to do in order to go inside and really see inside your body. But there are lots of guided things online for that live body scan. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and I'll give you a very simple answer, Trevor. Go into Google and write 1-minute body scan or 2-minute body scan or 4-minute body scan, and you'll find what you're looking for.
Okay, again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I want to just please, if there's anything that upset you, that rubbed you the wrong way, that you didn't understand, please feel free to email me. And hopefully I'll be able to get back to you and we can connect and figure it out. Okay?
Now, let me just jump in here for a second. I want to just say what a special evening. And Kim, you were brilliant. And Jill, it's so good and soothing to hear your voice. You're so gifted, such a gifted human being. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the topic is such a great topic, achieving meaningful relationships. You know, there's a little joke. They say, Ezekiel's prophecy about the Messianic era. It says, and a wolf will lay with a lamb, but every morning they'll have to provide a new lamb. So I'm just saying, achieving meaningful relationships, I hope everybody was able to take a lesson and deepen and strengthen their relationships.
Wow. I absolutely.
I've learned so much from you, Jill. So I so appreciate you coming on.
I've learned more from you.
I just want to pipe in here for one more moment as well. Just being the rabbi's wife, I can't help myself. And besides for the personal challenges that I went through myself, anything now I realize even during childhood, different ways that I interpreted things my parents did or said, all the way up to, living through, I was in Israel during one of the wars there. And then more recently with my husband being diagnosed and me getting into a terrible car accident, I did not choose to do any of this work. It was not like, oh, let's have a nice day. But more and more as I've been faced with life and tried to evolve, who I guess the person who God believes I can be, I've been actually finding more and more incredible Jewish sources, specifically in Hasidic thought, that explain that inner healing is actually the holiest work we can do. And if God wanted a world with angels, he would have just created the angels. But here, God created us as people with challenges, with flaws, with each other. And we're living in an era, besides for the pandemic, which I'm not at all mitigating. Maybe it's through this that we're being pushed even a little bit more. But we're living in an era where, thank God, we have so much physical abundance and so much opportunity that we can now do that work for the generations before us. And when we take the time, and it may seem like selfish, I'm speaking to a lot of my friends around here. I'm looking at you and I'm connecting with you, or you might think I'm not worthy enough, or like, what's the big deal? I'm just going to get through life. But if we recognize that this is literally holy work, and if we're able to create a vessel, like a physical body that is healthy, and relationships in this world that are healthy and loving, this is one of the main reasons why we're here, that we can recognize that godliness in other people, and that we can create a physical vessel, because we have a world to live in, and this world it's real, and emotions are real. You can run away from them until you can't anymore. Some people are on what's it called, when you don't feel, and sometimes that's a coping mechanism. Sometimes you need that. That's, there are those that struggle and don't even realize that they're struggling. But I just want to, end with my own words by saying how spiritual my journey has been the last couple of years when I've personally delved into my own healing, and how I've done a ton of teaching and a ton of work before then. But this new journey of challenges that I've never, ever asked for has led me to meet some of the most amazing people, and has really opened so many more doors for me that I'm feeling like I'm living like a soul. I'm feeling like in my physical body, when I take a nap, I'm living a holy life. And so those are my last thoughts here. And I want to thank Shmuley for coming on this journey with me, because he's been a great partner.
Yes. I want to say that there is a direct correlation between the size of the struggle and the trajectory that you can obtain. Like, obviously, if I didn't say that at the beginning, I meant to, which is, the greater the struggle, the greater human being. I mean, it's such a privilege to me to work in drug addictions. The patients that I have such incredible challenges. Obviously they're magnified by the drugs. But the people that make it, Dr. Avram Tversky has written many books on the subject, that the people who make it, they make it to such incredible heights. Like, it's just amazing. So we know the bigger the struggle, the bigger the climb, and the better the view is going to be. So, don't see the struggles as an impasse, see them as an opportunity for growth.
How beautiful. Jill, thank you. Thank you to the Jewish Learning Institute. Thank you, Shmuley. Thank you, Adina. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Jenna, for your technical assistance. This was truly a beautiful evening, and I have some very beautiful, new, meaningful relationships as a result of it. God truly brought you guys into my life, into my living room, and into my heart. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good night.
Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Adina. Thank you, Shmuley. Any last words from any of you?